Midwest levees start to give way under the weight of flooding rivers. Rocket attacks on northern Israel after the Israelis hit guerrilla bases in southern Lebanon. And the new ceasefire in Sarajevo goes up in smoke. This is the CBS Evening News. And this is John Roberts reporting. Good evening. Disaster officials are saying tonight that rivers in the Midwest could stay above flood stage for another month. And across the area today, the immense pressure of relentless rains and floodwaters overwhelmed efforts to keep those rivers contained. Levee after levee has been undermined and broken through. Bob Orr is in Alton, Illinois with the latest. Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, John. The Clinton administration now says this has moved past a disaster to, quote, a calamity. Communities are at risk every day behind these levees, and floodwaters are continuing to pound the levees each and every day up and down the Mississippi Valley. In Quincy, Illinois, water is crashing through a section of the second longest levee on the Mississippi, flooding over 30,000 acres of farmland. Already 100,000 acres have been lost, and many more could be. Another break today in Perryville, Missouri, where the Mississippi swept through this levee, flooding over 20,000 acres of land. Just upriver, more evacuations are underway. And in St. Joseph, Missouri, the latest flood wave has knocked out water service there to 77,000 people.
Well, I'm glad I'm getting water instead of being flooded.
In churches up and down the Mississippi today, people are praying for relief while bracing for the heavens to unleash more rain, creating a third wave of record floodwaters. All of that water now is heading downriver, making this a critical week for the soggy levees and the people who are racing again to stay ahead of the rising waters.
I think we're going to have to do a lot more bagging.
In areas like South St. Louis, volunteers are piling more sandbags on top of their already straining levees, preparing for at least another foot of floodwater.
Every time we think there's relief, the next onslaught comes downriver. So we're besieged by it.
New forecasts call for the river to reach 48 feet in St. Louis, a foot higher than last week, breaking yet another record. But the people here for now are holding on to their spirit, praying too that the levees will hold, and still waiting for brighter and drier days. Today has been relatively kind, little or no rain in the area. It's very muggy and very steamy, but no rain, and that's important. But every time the people in these valleys get their hopes up, some other bad news floats down the river. John?
Bob, with the ground beneath these levees now saturated, is there concern that more of them that have held up so far are going to start to let go?
No doubt about it. Particularly, they're watching the ones south of St. Louis around St. Genevieve. The problem is the levees have been standing. They're very soggy. It's hard to detect underneath the water what's going on. If the bags underneath give way, then soon that can wash out. The tops can collapse. And I suspect that maybe, I say maybe, what happened today in Quincy.
Bob Orr on the flood watch in Alton, Illinois. Thanks. All along the Mississippi Valley, the tug of war between people fighting to save what's theirs and a river determined to reclaim what it once owned has been going on now for weeks. Each new crest, each new levee break is falling on people already driven to exhaustion. Terrence Smith reports on how one town is coping with stress. It's rising as quickly as the floodwaters.
We are gearing up for the worst flood in this city's history.
In Alton, Illinois today, Mayor Bob Taus and other residents of this small industrial city across the river from St. Louis were once again preparing to do battle with the Mississippi. People of Alton had thought the worst was behind them. But this weekend they learned that heavy rains upstream will shortly bring more trouble.
New crest next week will be 41.5 feet, which will be a record flood here in Alton.
Half of the town's riverfront business district has been underwater for almost 3 weeks. Mayor Taus has been doing what he can to keep up the spirits of shop owners like Gene Childress, whose antique store is just a few feet from the rising river.
It's not even real. I can't believe it.
I know.
This is Chinese water torture. There's no doubt about it.
John Tripp is a psychologist who has been helping flood victims cope with the stress of a sustained crisis.
We're probably looking at an increase in probable suicide rates as people are not only bankrupt, they're destitute, they're real sad, and that's the kind of pain that never goes away.
Some representative troops at each one of those sites to support us.
Mayor Taus, a retired engineer who took office just 3 months ago, thinks the people of Alton are bearing up well.
I see people tired, but I don't see angry people. I don't see tempers flaring. I see tired people sometimes meeting a new challenge.
In at least one respect, the people of Alton are more fortunate than many of the Mississippi flood victims. Their homes are generally on high ground. They have running water and electricity, and so far at least, no one has had to be evacuated. And as the flooding continues with no end in sight, they are getting on with their lives.
Dearly beloved, we
Lisa Jameson and Darren Jones got married yesterday in a city park. At Memorial Hospital, Ms. Haley Freeman, at 6 pounds 7 ounces, became the newest resident of Alton. Terrence Smith, CBS News, Alton, Illinois.
In the Middle East, Israel has launched its fiercest attacks into Lebanon in more than a decade. Warplanes and helicopters pounded guerrilla targets all day long. Those attacks have not gone without response, and there are casualties, Lebanese, Syrian, and Israeli. Jesse Schulman has more on the fighting on both sides of the border.
Weeks of warnings today came true. Israeli jets attacked in southern Lebanon, near Beirut, and deep into the Bekaa Valley, killing at least 12. The target, bases belonging to Iranian-backed Hezbollah fundamentalists and Palestinian extremists, whose gunmen have killed 6 Israeli troops so far this month in the strip of southern Lebanon Israel calls its security zone.
We cannot accept and we are not going to accept this attempt to change the rules of engagement in this area.
Those unwritten rules say Israel hits back hard if rockets land on Israeli soil. Dozens did. At least 2 people were killed tonight when one hit the Galilee town of Kiryat Shimona. Along the borders, civilians were warned to take shelter. Families faced an uncomfortable night underground. All day, Israel continued to build up its forces on the ground in case the other side still isn't ready to back down. These latest clashes could derail the Middle East peace process. Syria says one of its bases was hit in the air raids and at least 2 of its soldiers killed. But senior officials in Jerusalem say they're sure the talks will go on.
It is in the interest of all parties concerned to continue with the peace negotiation.
But talks or no talks, Prime Minister Rabin has pledged to take further military action, perhaps moving ground troops farther into Lebanese territory if Israel's border towns aren't left alone. So far, there's little to indicate they will be, and little to suggest this latest flare-up is about to start cooling down. Jesse Schulman, CBS News, Jerusalem.
The latest Bosnian ceasefire has been shredded on the battlefield. Warring Serbs, Croats, and Muslims had agreed to stop fighting as a condition for peace talks scheduled to begin Tuesday in Geneva. But just hours after the accord went into effect, the shells started falling. And as Martha Teichner reports, most of them were aimed at the United Nations.
It was a nice ceasefire. That was the comment of a UN soldier in Sarajevo when the Serbs fired 68 artillery